The PTA banquet was supposed to be my moment. All those months of late-night study sessions and extra projects, the scholarship spotlight was meant to be my tiny payback for the sacrifices my family had made. They'd even asked me to give a little thank you speech, to highlight how my guardian had made it possible for me to attend my dream college. He was there in his pressed navy blazer, shaking hands with parents and leaning just close enough to the principal so everyone could see he belonged in the room. I ducked into the hallway to get my notes from my bag when I heard his voice. Calm but clipped, the way he talks when he doesn't want someone to argue. "Cancel her payment," he said into his phone. "Yes, the college fund transfer for Ava. Move it to Lily's tuition, priority processing. She'll figure it out eventually, probably cry a bit, but she'll be fine." It was like the air got sucked out of the building. I froze halfway through, pulling out my flashcards, my pulse hammering in my ears. Ava. That was me. I glanced toward the doorway. He was turned away, the gold light from the banquet spilling over the polished wood floor behind him. Casual, unhurried, like he wasn't just dismantling my future while ordering an extra dessert. I gripped the strap of my bag so hard I could feel the stitching cut into my palm. My college fund wasn't a luxury. It was the only way I could afford to finish the semester, never mind the next 3 years. I had no backup plan, no secret savings. Everything I'd been promised since my dad died, security, stability, set for life, was suddenly hanging over a cliff. The worst part? In 5 minutes, I was supposed to walk up there, into the spotlight of the stage lights, and thank him for believing in my potential. If you think I confronted him right there, I didn't. I couldn't. I plastered on a smile and walked back into that banquet like nothing had happened, pretending I hadn't just heard the most devastating words of my adult life. But in my head, something had already started to unravel, and I knew I couldn't let it slide. What I didn't yet know was how deep this rabbit hole went, or that this overheard phone call was just the first crack in something much bigger. Shall I write the next chapter? I kept replaying his tone in my head. Smooth, assured, so sure I wouldn't notice until it was too late. The banquet passed in a haze. Polite laughter felt like static. Applause was distant thunder. I managed to get through my scripted thank you, the words tasting bitter. Every thank you for your support, landing like a lie on my own tongue. By the time I got home that night, the shock had calcified into something heavier. 8 years of him acting like my father in everything but paperwork. Rides to school, teaching me how to drive, lending me gas money when my job cut hours. Stepping into my dad's shoes, saying, "Don't worry, Ava, I'll make sure you get to follow your dreams." The college fund wasn't just a number in a bank account for me. It was the one thing tethering me to my future. After Dad passed, there were insurance payouts and a trust I was too young to understand. All I knew was that he promised me, "When the time comes, this will be for you." He even made a point of telling people how proud he'd be to send our girl to the university of her choosing. But Mom works part-time at the library with unpredictable shifts. She couldn't afford tuition on her own. And me? I'd been banking everything, my grades, my scholarship essays, around the idea that that fund was waiting, untouched, like a vault locked just for me. If he had really pulled that money, my next tuition bill would bounce like an empty check, and it wasn't like I could just walk away from this house. Rent wasn't an option. Student loans might cover part of it, but not in time for the upcoming deadline. I was trapped in the same way you get trapped in a car going too fast. You don't jump out, you just brace and hope you survive the impact. I tried to run through scenarios. Maybe I'd misheard. Maybe it was temporary. But none of those imagined maybes could explain his voice saying, "Cancel her payment," like it was nothing. None could reverse the lump in my throat when I imagined telling my mom, who might believe him over me. Still, I couldn't confront him blind. I needed to know for sure if the fund was gone, or if he would throw out some story about reallocating it. And deep down, I dreaded what I might learn if I dug. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the sliver of light under my door, I realized the cracks had been there for months, and I just hadn't wanted to see them. Shall I write the next chapter? Looking back, the signs were everywhere. So small at first, they were easy to ignore. Last year, my birthday gift from him was a $20 bookstore card. I told myself it was fine, practical even. 2 months later, Lily, his biological daughter, turned 17, and he surprised her with a brand new iPhone and a weekend trip to Chicago for some art exhibit she barely glanced at. He stopped driving me to my evening study group because it's out of the way, yet he'd drive across town to see Lily's rehearsals, even missing dinner to sit in gym bleachers with his camera. Once, when I asked if he'd come to my debate finals, he'd smiled like I was joking and said, "That's not really my scene, kiddo." I chalked it up to different bonds, different personalities. But even the holidays had shifted. 2 years ago, our Christmas tree was covered with the ornaments Dad left me, each one with its own story. Last Christmas, I found them boxed away in the garage, replaced with Lily's sparkly white and gold theme. Thinking about those moments now, I realized they were all grooming me to accept being second. And I had played along, swallowing the sting every time, telling myself not to be dramatic. A week before the banquet, I'd overheard him on the phone with Lily, promising she'd never have to worry about tuition, not while I'm around. At the time, I thought he was just being supportive, a good dad. Now I could see the blueprint. My college money had been sitting there like a prize, just waiting for him to redirect. The more I pieced it together, the more nauseous I felt. He must have decided months ago that my goals were optional, but hers were guaranteed. The next morning over breakfast, I caught him watching me unusually closely when I mentioned midterms. He smiled too easily, like he was hoping I would just keep floating along in ignorance. That confirmed it for me. He was counting on me not asking the right questions. And now that I'd noticed, I couldn't unsee all the little imbalances stitched into my day-to-day life, which meant I couldn't ignore them anymore either. I knew I had to push, even subtly, to see how he'd react. But I also knew he'd twist things the second my mom got involved. Shall I write the next chapter? 2 nights later, I decided to test him. Mom was upstairs folding laundry. I lingered in the kitchen while he sorted through some mail, the glow from the overhead light making everything feel sharper, too clean. I kept my voice light, almost teasing. "So, tuition payments go through this week, right?" I said, pretending to scroll my phone. I saw the deadline on the portal. For a split second, his eyes tightened before he smoothed it over with a grin. "Why are you worrying about that? You're doing fine. Just keep your grades up." It sounded caring on the surface, but underneath it was an evasion, the kind a person uses when the truth is messy. I laughed a little, kept it casual. "No, I know, it's weird not seeing the payment confirmation yet. Normally they send me an email." His voice turned airy, almost amused, like I'd asked something ridiculous. "You don't need to monitor all that. That's why I handle it. Less for you to stress about." Then, with his back facing me, I saw him slip something into the recycling, a crumpled envelope with my college's return address. I felt heat crawl up my neck. I wanted to grab it right then, flatten it out, demand an explanation. But Mom's footsteps came down the stairs, and I knew if I did it in front of her without proof, she'd write it off as me overreacting. Later that evening, I overheard him again, not on the phone this time, but talking to her while I was supposed to be studying upstairs. "She's too sensitive," he said in that sigh-laced voice that dripped fake concern. "It might be good for her to figure things out herself. Work a bit, take responsibility. It'll toughen her up." Mom's reply was muted. unintelligible. But I caught his laugh after it. The kind of laugh people give when they've already convinced themselves they're right. That night, alone in my room, his words kept looping in my head. Toughen me up? By gutting the one promise he'd held over my head for nearly a decade? By handing my shot at independence to his daughter instead? If he thought I'd just swallow that without a fight, he didn't know me as well as he thought. Shall I write the next chapter? That week at the PTA event for Lily's school, I watched it happen in real time. The moment he crossed the invisible line from subtle favoritism into outright humiliation. The auditorium was warm and buzzing with chatter, the kind of buzz that makes your skin feel tight. I was there because Mom said it would be nice if I supported Lily at her award ceremony. I didn't mind, until he stepped up to the mic. This year has been all about family sacrifices, he began, eyes sweeping the crowd. His hand rested proudly on Lily's shoulder. We've redirected resources, shifted priorities, but seeing her excel at the arts program we worked so hard to get her into, worth every penny. There was laughter, applause. I sat in the front row, staring at the polished wood floor so I wouldn't have to meet anyone's eyes. Every word landed like a slap. Redirected resources, shifted priorities. As if my education were just a misplaced grocery item he'd decided to return for store credit. And then, in front of everyone, he beamed and said, "This is what investing in the future looks like." Teachers nodded. Parents whispered to each other. Not one person knew that investing in the future was code for draining my tuition fund. I could feel Mom's hand on my arm, her nails pressing just a little too hard. She didn't look at me. She just kept smiling at the stage, murmuring, "Smile," through clenched teeth. I smiled. My lips hurt from how forced it was, the muscles in my jaw locking into place. I didn't trust myself to speak. I knew my voice would crack from all the words I wasn't allowed to say here, in public, in his arena. By the time we left, my fingers were so stiff from being clenched in my lap that I had to flex them painfully in the cool night air. Mom chatted about the refreshments as if nothing had happened, as if I hadn't just been erased like a footnote he'd decided no one needed to read. That was when I knew. If I tried to solve this quietly, I'd be buried under more of these staged performances, and he'd keep winning the narrative. I had to figure out a way to see the actual numbers, to prove what he'd done. And I had to do it before my next tuition bill bounced and became irreversible. Shall I write the next chapter? I spent the next few days trying to think of any legitimate way I could get eyes on that account. But every roadblock he'd built suddenly felt 10 feet taller. The fund was private, in his name, for my benefit, which meant I wasn't listed as the account holder, just the intended recipient. That's what he told me years ago, back when I believed every word. Mom sided with him fully this time. "Ava, it's his money. He's been generous. Don't start acting entitled." That sentence hit like a stone in my ribs. Entitled? I wanted to scream that this was money from my father's estate, funds that only existed because of Dad's death, funds that were never his to reroute. But the way Mom said it told me everything. She'd already chosen not to see it that way. So I went pragmatic. I floated the idea of checking in with the bank, just to learn about my future finances. He shut it down instantly with a little laugh. "That's not necessary. You'll get the updates when you need them. Focus on your exams." I recognized the tactic. Feed me niceties to keep me docile until the window closed completely. The breaking moment came in the most mundane way. Mom asked me to bring my laptop to the dining table to help organize PTA paperwork. She handed me her phone to forward a few emails. As I searched through the inbox, a new PDF popped up in the middle of the screen, titled with the name of his bank. I froze. It wasn't even to Mom. It was forwarded from the PTA treasurer to him, accidentally CCing her. The file opened in one click, a statement for the Educational Growth account with my name listed as the beneficiary. And there it was. A withdrawal dated last week, so large my throat went dry. Almost to the dollar, it matched the figure for Lily's private school tuition, which had been announced publicly when they proudly listed her among the incoming elite program students. For a moment, the room spun. My fingers twitched on the laptop trackpad, hovering between taking a screenshot and closing it before Mom noticed. My palms were sweating, and the soft hum of the refrigerator grated in my ears like static. I quietly emailed it to myself under a completely innocent subject line, PTA files, and shut the laptop. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. I had the proof. Cold, numerical, date-stamped proof not even he could spin away. The only question was, if I used it, would Mom finally believe me? Or would he just find another way to make me the villain? Shall I write the next chapter? That night, I sat in bed with my laptop open, rereading the statement until the numbers blurred. It wasn't just the amount. It was the smug simplicity of the transaction. No hesitation, no partial withdrawal, just one clean sweep from my future into hers. Every time I imagined confronting him, I pictured Mom's face first. She'd go pale, then tighten her jaw, and I knew her instinct would be to protect the balance of the household, which meant protecting him. 8 years of shared bills, vacations, little household systems. She'd cling to the story that this was all a misunderstanding rather than admit he'd done something so calculated. But keeping it quiet was no longer an option. The semester deadline was weeks away. If the next tuition draft failed, I'd be pulled from my classes. That wouldn't just destroy this year. It would fracture my academic record permanently. I decided to pull in someone outside the house. Someone who couldn't be gaslit by family loyalty. The perfect opening was at the school. The PTA treasurer and the school accountant both had access to see who paid what for scholarships. They also knew him, knew the way he presented himself as a generous benefactor. My plan was risky. Slip the statement into their hands quietly, frame it as a discrepancy needing clarification, and see if the numbers matched our school's scholarship records. If the redirected tuition was linked publicly to Lily's name, the paper trail would be undeniable. Every bone in my body buzzed with adrenaline just thinking about it. If he found out I was digging, he'd shut down my access to Mom, to the house Wi-Fi, to minor things that still kept me tethered here. And worse, he might move the rest of the fund before anyone could freeze it. But each time I hesitated, I pictured the auditorium stage, his proud hand on Lily's shoulder, and his voice calling dismantling my dreams a family sacrifice. That image alone made me promise myself he would not get to keep that story intact. The question now was how to corner him where his image mattered most, without warning him in advance. Shall I write the next chapter? The opportunity came faster than I expected. An email went out to the PTA about a special recognition night for scholarship sponsors, a casual meeting with coffee and pastries before the regular agenda. He was on the list, of course, beaming in the group photo they'd attached. I knew it was my perfect stage. Not to burn his life down in public, not yet, but to put the truth in motion where the right people could see it. The treasurer, Mrs. Cole, would be there, along with the school accountant, Mr. Finley. Both had a reputation for precision. I printed the bank statement at the library, my hand hovering over the copier's confirm button for several long seconds before pressing. The paper felt heavier than it should, warm from the machine. I slid it between 2 PTA flyers in my folder. The night of the meeting, I arrived early, half from nerves, half to make sure I could sit close to Mrs. Cole without it seeming deliberate. He strolled in 5 minutes later, smelling faintly of cologne and self-satisfaction, greeting everyone like he was the mayor. When Mrs. Cole finally turned to me, I asked quietly if she could check something after the meeting. Something about my scholarship account. her brows knitted with concern, but she nodded. I slipped her the paper without ceremony, my pulse roaring in my ears. During the meeting, I watched her eyes dart down to the page in her lap, then back up at me. No reaction at first, until I saw the tiniest pull of her mouth, the kind of expression people make when numbers don't add up. Later, in the hallway, Mr. Finley joined her at the vending machine. Their voices were low, but I caught the words tuition match, not consistent, and need to verify. The way they looked over at him, still exchanging pleasantries with another parent, told me they'd already connected the dots. For the first time since that overheard phone call, I felt the faintest swell of control come back to me. The story wasn't just mine anymore. Someone else had seen the paper trail, and they couldn't unsee it. Now it was only a matter of how and when I would force him to face it. Shall I write the next chapter? The following week, the air in the house felt charged. Nobody had said anything yet, but I could sense the shift. He was quieter around me, almost overly polite, as if careful not to trip over some invisible wire. I wondered if Mrs. Cole or Mr. Finlay had asked him questions already, planting the first seeds of doubt in his image. I didn't want to wait for gossip to do the work. I wanted to make it undeniable. That Saturday morning, I asked Mom if she could come with me to the next PTA meeting, told her they wanted student reps and parents present. She looked puzzled but agreed, maybe thinking it was just a sweet bonding thing. When we arrived, the meeting opened with a short financial summary, read aloud by Mrs. Cole. She rarely mentioned specifics, but this time, her eyes flicked to me before she spoke about recent reallocations and sponsor-directed funds. I could see him shift in his seat 3 rows ahead, his shoulders stiffening. After the meeting, I asked Mom to step into a side room for a moment. My palms were slick, the printed statement folded in my hand. Wordlessly, I laid it on the table in front of her. She read it, and her face drained of color. She looked at me, then at the doorway, as if weighing whether to bolt or to speak. This could be, she started, searching for a softer word than theft. But before she could find it, another voice cut in. "You two talking about me?" He stood in the doorway, his smile as thin as paper. The silence was heavy. I realized Mrs. Cole had probably tipped him off we were in here. I took a step forward, my voice steady. Tell her where this money went. Or I will." For a moment, his eyes hardened. The mask cracked. But then, from down the hall, another parent called, "Hey, great job with Lily's tuition score." It was like the room went colder instantly. Mom's eyes narrowed at him, reading the slip in real time. To her credit, she didn't speak, just waited. It was the first time I saw him actually cornered. And he knew it. "Shall I write the next chapter?" He tried to recover, but his voice had that brittle edge, the one people get when the room feels smaller than it is. "What's the big drama?" he said lightly, stepping inside. "I shifted some funds around for a bit, that's all. Lily's program had an urgent deadline, and yours is, well, more flexible." "Flexible?" My words cut sharper than I intended. "You canceled my tuition payment." Mom's eyes darted between us. "Is that true?" Her voice was shaky, but there was steel under it this time. He gave a half shrug, palms out like we were overreacting. "It's not permanent. Ava can work a semester, re-enroll later. It builds character. You think anyone handed me my education?" "That's not the point," Mom snapped, sharper than I'd heard in years. "This fund isn't a gift from you. It came from—" She caught herself, glanced at me. It was meant for her. Before he could spit back another justification, a woman's voice from the hallway cut in. "Mrs. Cole, we're actually reviewing that transaction with the bank, just so everyone's records line up." She said it loud enough for 2 other parents nearby to hear. And that was it. The fault line broke. I watched his confident expression falter completely, realizing the audience now extended beyond the family bubble. His tight little empire of "I'm the provider" was unraveling in real time. "Careful what you're implying," he said. But it was weak now, almost a hiss. Mom folded the statement and slipped it into her purse without breaking eye contact with him. That small action said everything. She wasn't going to let him keep the paperwork hidden. When he stormed out a moment later, the eyes that followed him weren't admiring anymore. They were curious, judgmental. Exactly the thing he feared most. And I knew that after today, however the bank handled it, his story about being my great benefactor would never land quite the same way again. Shall I write the next chapter? By Monday, the rumors were moving faster than I could have hoped. In PTA circles, nothing moves like financial scandal, and the phrase misallocation of funds has a way of sticking to someone's name like gum on a shoe. Mom was quiet, processing. She hadn't apologized, not yet, but something in her posture toward me had shifted. She lingered more when I spoke, stopped rushing to defend him like she had before. I think seeing him squirm in front of witnesses cracked something in her. That afternoon, the bank called. A woman from their compliance department said, "We've temporarily frozen the account pending verification of beneficiary entitlement." Her voice was all business, but I could tell she knew the drama behind the numbers. When I got home, he was pacing in the kitchen. "Did you seriously take this to the bank?" he snapped. "Do you have any idea what this makes me look like?" "Yes," I said flatly. That was the point. His face went crimson. He started in about loyalty, about family business, staying in the family. But the edge was gone. He was shaken, rattled by the fact that I'd moved outside his control. That evening, Mrs. Cole called Mom directly, offering to connect us with a pro bono attorney who regularly assists with educational trust disputes. Her exact words were, "If that account was designated for Ava, there are legal steps for her to become the primary signer." I could see it flicker in Mom's eyes. Realization, maybe even guilt, that all those years of telling me it's his money had been wrong. The money was mine, legally intended for me, and she had let him manage it unchecked. We booked a meeting with the attorney 2 days later. He didn't try to stop us, but the way his jaw clenched when we left told me it was killing him to watch the narrative slip further from his grasp. The control he once had over how my life unfolded, and how the family saw me, was now being pulled apart. One paper, one witness, one overheard phone call at a time. And still, there was one last thing I needed to do to close this chapter for good. Shall I write the next chapter?